I believe we are live now. Awesome. Hello, everyone. This is Giga speaking, one of the founders of OriginTrail. It's wonderful to be here. It's a great day, although it's a little bit cold here in Slovenia. And we're actually calling from several locations tonight with you. It's Branimir Rakic, the CTO and the founder of OriginTrail, Tomasz Levak, and yours truly, myself, as we're going to take you through some very cool stuff related to one of the most important products. And then we're also going to have Yuri Shkornik join us. He's going to be calling us from Germany, I believe, and also demonstrating his coolness. Just guys, could you give me a confirmation everything works fine? Because I'm not sure, I'm not receiving any feedback right now.
Everything seems to be going perfectly.
All right, awesome. Then let's have a round of saying hello from all of us so that we kind of ease ourselves into this wonderful evening/morning, wherever you are, discussion and presentation.
Yeah, I guess I already said something, so I'll say hi as well. Hi, everyone. It's great to be hanging out today. It's been a day we've been looking forward to for quite a bit. So I'm really excited to have a chance to see and be a part of this this event and see everything. Yeah, start to rev up, especially as it pertains to V6. Yeah, that'll be a high for me. I'll take it off to Brana.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here as well. It's been a special period, which we basically culminate with this event where we launched the newest version of OriginTrail, and it's great to have you with us. And I'm happy to share with the rest of the folks on the call all of the great news about what's yet to come. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the session today.
Yeah, hi. Also from my side, a lot of exciting things going on in the past year that are kind of coming to fruition now at this event. So hope you guys have your eyes and ears ready, and then we have a very good launch event.
Awesome, thank you very much. I must admit I'm very excited, and as well I'm very kind of juiced up with adrenaline currently, because we're launching something live, and this must be the first public launch of something decentralized. Plus, you know, it's not just one of the launches, and by doing so, we're going to open doors into the knowledge economy, something that we have been talking a while ago, but has just recently come to a fruition because of the launch of something very important, which you all know about, the V6. Can we have a next slide? And we're going to go quickly through an agenda, so you guys know what are we going to be covering today.
Let me just share, Giga.
Awesome. Let's wait for the presentation.
All right.
All right, awesome. I'm seeing it now. The race towards the knowledge economy is on. So the agenda for today. We're going to quickly touch upon the global economy and trust challenges before going to, to look into the imperative to grow the OriginTrail trusted OriginTrail knowledge graph, and how to actually grow the trusted knowledge within the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, and touching upon the reasons for the OriginTrail V6 before dwelling into OriginTrail, what OriginTrail really is, what are the knowledge assets, and why OriginTrail is opening doors towards the knowledge economy with this new iteration of OriginTrail, which is called V6. We're also going to release the network. So this is a decentralized system, and to my knowledge, this is definitely one of the first public releases of something decentralized. So it's not just involving us, the core builders of OriginTrail, but also you, the community members, node runners, also trace holders, which have been holding the utility token and also teleporting it onto the parachain, which is going to be the first chain on Polkadot, which is going to benefit from the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph V6. So a very, very heated up evening before us, up until the network release. And of course, this is not going to be the end. What we're also going to do, we're going to be opening the doors towards into the knowledge economy by actually igniting the creation of the first knowledge assets on the network, on a decentralized permissionless network, using the network operating system, which has recently been updated. Actually, it has been launched as a new version, much like OriginTrail V6, in order to support trusted knowledge assets. And this phase, Yuri is also going to dwell into it. So it's a live usage of the DKG V6. We're going to be creating assets that are needed for the real users from real world, which is pretty awesome. So again, this is another product launching today on the DKG. And next, we're also going to be touching upon the way V6 is going to be used in the European construction sector via a project that has recently received European Union's funding for the next few years in order to ensure sustainability within the European construction sector. So touching upon, again, something new product, new project. Also not last, definitely not the least, is the Houston app, which is going to be used initially mostly by the node runners in order to manage all the settings needed for them to be successful at running nodes within the Decentralized Knowledge Graph version 6. And Houston app is also going to feature a few most important metrics for the network, for the OriginTrail Decentralized Knowledge Graph V6. Lastly, we're also going to be we're also going to check the new roadmap. New roadmap is also pretty much important because it kind of consolidates things that have been that we have been working so far. And within the old roadmap, there were a lot of things missing, essentially. So we had to bring a lot of stuff which perhaps we have been working on behind the closed doors into the OriginTrail, the new roadmap. But also in the future, within the next phases, there are some things which we were a little bit quicker in implementing, especially within the V6, so that even some future things have been completed by now. And the entire roadmap has therefore been made even more ambitious in order for us to have kind of an ambitious trajectory well into the future. All right, so we're just going to dig into the next slide. Awesome. So yeah, so essentially trust has two enemies, as we all know. It's bad character and bad data. And while bad data can be tackled, and we're using OriginTrail for that purpose, the bad character can never be truly eliminated. That's why it is in our primary focus to be improving transparency, improving trust into the way data is managed, into the way data is shared. But not only that, we are also focusing on the way data is being connected. And later on, once we release the V6 network, we are also going to be transitioning from the trusted data, trusted information onto the knowledge and knowledge assets, knowledge asset creation on the V6 network. And so the bad character and bad data duality is present throughout the entire economy, global economy, both crypto and, let's call it a little bit real world. I'm sure you're all aware what's been going on in crypto recently, and hopefully such things are coming to resolution. But we have kind of come to a conclusion that even more than before, it makes sense to focus on annihilating the bad data in order also to tackle the bad character. Can I get a next slide, please? So OriginTrail has been tackling trust and transparency issues in supply chains mostly for almost 10 years now, and we need to kind of point out here that OriginTrail is not a company; it's an ecosystem of companies not only using but also contributing towards the development, towards the growth of OriginTrail code base as well as the OriginTrail ecosystem. We have plenty of partners that have implemented OriginTrail for their uses to establish networks of companies which are exchanging information. You've heard about the trusted factor being used by some of the largest retailers in the world to exchange audit reports, pharmaceutical supply chains, food supply chains, and many others. So these are not just like these are not just sums of companies using the technology, but these are truly ecosystems within an ecosystem that have seen the value within the OriginTrail. And now going to the next slide, this has also reflected in a pretty much quick growth of OriginTrail network in terms of the total graph size. And the total graph size essentially represents how much of the knowledge has been exchanged and how much of the data has been connected within the decentralized knowledge graph. And as you have seen, the network has gained quick growth, especially in 2020 in the beginning, when we doubled down on the multi-chain direction, on which we also doubled down today further. We're going to take a look a little bit later into the roadmap, and we're going to see how multi-chain is still the way to go and how it will, how we're harnessing that approach even in the future to expedite the growth of OriginTrail ecosystem and OriginTrail network. Now, coming all the way to this year and to the present, of course, the previous versions of the network were not sufficiently capable to support the growth that is needed, the growth for which both users, both ecosystem participators are asking for. And this is also one of the reasons why V6 is coming in at the moment, where we want to sustain the growth, where we want to honor the imperative for OriginTrail ecosystem to grow. It all kind of boils down to the knowledge as a valuable asset, and knowledge is valuable. And when you share the knowledge is multiplied. And this is essentially the vision, the mission that OriginTrail is standing behind. Next slide. And we're also going to kind of very quickly dig into what OriginTrail is. Why is it opening doors into the knowledge economy? What are knowledge assets? And Tomasz is going to take you through all the important concepts of V6. Tomasz, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and I'll share some of the burden with Branimir as well, so we can cover both of the topics as well from the tech side. But taking the point where Giga kind of left it off, it's really V6 is something that's been a very giant, in a way, leap from what we've been on, the trajectory that we've been on so far. Similarly to how we've seen really things have a big jump previously, like the already mentioned multi-chain realization once that happens. And with V6, we're really going and making a transition towards the knowledge economy by jumping or by enabling data to really become knowledge assets. And this is something that's been, it's not just a kind of like a concept that came out of thin air. Whatever you see within V6 is really something that's a product of all of the adoption of all of the things that have been done over the course of the last years. And they have culminated, or they somehow influenced what V6 really became, and all the different components that make it a very powerful infrastructure upon which we'll see the further growth jump from. So what we're going to do within the next few slides is really we're looking at a few key concepts that are worth talking about in a little bit more detail. Just so, because as these are now really the building blocks that we are looking at when we're talking about OriginTrail's ecosystems growth, or any other, basically, you'll be able to spot all the different even values of the OriginTrail ecosystem. So from neutrality to inclusiveness to usability, and really have them get realization within the OriginTrail V6. So without further ado, yeah, unless Brana, do you want to do any additional intro before we go into the into the components?
Yeah, sure. Maybe just for, I suppose a lot of people who are here have already been with us for some time, but for those of you who have not, you're about to see the internals, basically technical components of OriginTrail and what does it mean to transition, to really transform to version 6. Just for the ones who've never maybe seen anything about OriginTrail, OriginTrail is a decentralized knowledge graph. It's a combination of two decentralized systems. One is blockchain, or a blockchain, because OriginTrail is a multi-chain system. It can work with multiple blockchains. And then, so that's layer 1, the blockchain, and then we call it layer 2, the decentralized knowledge graph, which is the network that is not a blockchain, but actually a knowledge graph system. And both of these play a critical role in the system. If you look at these networks, blockchains are really trust networks. As if you've been in the Web3 system, you've seen obviously applications that are designed to be more trusted or trustless, if I might say it like that. Anything from Bitcoin all the way to applications today. And the point there is to use technologies such as blockchain, which enable primitives such as consensus, cryptography, things like that, which enable basically infusing trust. And this is the layer of trust blockchain enables making this. But what blockchain is not really a great database. So if you want to do some sort of a query, if you want to do like ask it a question, it's not really great at answering it. It's actually quite horrible in some ways for some things. But it's in the sense of that it's not been designed for that. So it's designed for trust and for security. And if implemented well, that's what you will get. Knowledge graphs, on the other hand, the layer on top, are all about this data and querying and making it usable, accessible, and discoverable. So the decentralized knowledge graph of OriginTrail is a combination of the two. It's a unique combination in the world. Nobody has built something like that before. And it's, as you can see today, reaching this version 6. Evolution really became a transformation, as we will see, where we move really from data to something called knowledge assets. And I guess we can move to the next slide so we explain what these knowledge assets are all about. So essentially, if we look at an anatomy of a knowledge asset, think of a kind of a self-contained thing which lives within these two systems that I just mentioned, blockchains and knowledge graphs. So starting from the top, from the data, data comes in all flavors and sizes, and it's pretty much in all kinds of systems around the world. One of the key problems with data, if you observe it from any angle, is it's really in a lot of different flavors. It's hard to understand. If you take something from one system and just sort of place it in another, it's probably going to require some transformation and sort of translation into this new system. So this is commonly a data interoperability problem. And one great way to make data very much interoperable is to use graphs. So knowledge graphs help with that. And these asset graphs are part of the actual knowledge asset on the DKG. They're based on something called RDF. RDF is a very mature technology coming from the more traditional web, or better said, semantic web, whose father was Tim Berners-Lee, the actual father of the World Wide Web. And basically, the RDF is this universal W3C standard for describing graphs. So when it comes to OriginTrail knowledge assets, this is where the data starts. We have data which is turned into asset graphs, but that is not the entire asset. From that moment on, and if somebody would click, please, thank you, we get into something very interesting. And as you might have seen on the web so far, you interact with URLs daily, on a daily basis. A URL, or Uniform Resource Locator, is everything from your Twitter account link to a YouTube video to pretty much anything. Google.com is a URL. And these are quite common there. That's why they're a primitive of the web. You build the entire web on it. And basically, websites point to each other by containing URLs of each other. In this new world of Web3 and the world of knowledge assets, URLs actually become an evolution of the URL. They are unique identifiers or asset locators for the knowledge assets. So what makes them different from the traditional URLs is that actually you can truly own them. that means that they are also verifiable for ownership and for state. So if we move 2 clicks more, please, we will see those components. So part of the asset are also immutability proofs, which basically give us the ability to verify the state of the asset graph, achieving this immutability property that we require from decentralized systems that basically are kind of a commonplace presumption, as well as an ownership record, which is essentially an NFT. So all these things together, all these 4 things are essentially one asset. So when you create one, you actually infuse some data, you wrap it up, you create an ownership record, you assign immutability proofs, which basically are in a way, hashes of the graph in a very clever way. We hash this graph, and you assign a globally unique identifier, the URL to it. With this URL, then you can do all kinds of things. You can connect other assets, just as you can connect websites via URLs. You can build on top of it, like you create a website at a certain URL, or any type of service in the Web3 decentralized system, especially knowledge services. And then finally, what you can do with them is you can basically do some things more than you can do with normal URLs. You can transfer them because you are the true owner. The ownership is represented with this NFT. So whatever you can do with an NFT, such as sell it, put it on a marketplace, you can do with such an asset. What does that give the opportunity of the owner to do? Well, the owner gets to manage the asset. That means you can update the asset graph, you can change it, you have the ability to verifiably update and show the previous history of this asset to the entire world. Additionally, these assets get attached to keywords. So that will be another click, please. So these keywords basically resemble very much like your keywords when you do some sort of traditional web search. If you go into Google, for example, you start searching, what you're typing really inside is, let's say, a keyword list, a list of things you're looking for. And as another primitive of the DKG, all of these assets, I might say, live at certain keywords and therefore enable discoverability via certain keywords or topics. And this topic can be anything, any type of word you want to use. Just to make sure that this is all clear, all of these assets, they don't live on the blockchain. So what lives on the blockchain is the NFT and the immutability proofs. However, the data, the actual purple part of this graph, or the graphs themselves, are in the DKG. And this network is tailored for managing a large amount of data, in a distributed fashion, querying it and discovering. So the combination with the 2 systems, as I might say, the pink and the blue, the dark blue, is actually the 2 layers that you can distinguish connected by one single identifier. So the URL connects both of these worlds into a single entity from the perspective of the user. And let's say you're the user. So if we click a couple more times, let's say you're a developer, you want to create an asset, or you're some asset publisher. It's never been as easy as with V6 to actually create them. So if you're ever written any code, you basically have to do 2 lines. You need to instantiate the DKG client, which is this first line, DKG equals new DKG options. You set some options, and then essentially you just you make a call to the DKG, and you say dkg.assets.create. You provide your asset graph, so with certain options such as, for how long do you want this asset to live on the network? Then at which keywords do you want to position this asset for discoverability? Things like that. Also, how many tokens essentially you would like to designate for the persistence of these assets on the network. And then once that's created, once the process is over, basically the asset is assigned its own URL. So you can actually get it with this second line or third line, in this case, the dkg.assets.get. Like essentially that is very similar to how get in HTTP works. So if you ever open the website and like literally paste the link in your browser, that's exactly what's happened under the hood. So HTTP get goes and gets the website you're looking for and loads it into your browser. So very similarly, the same operation happens on the level of the DKG. Finally, you can do update, and you can do another interesting one, which is the transfer. Normally, when we speak about managing certain objects within the computer science world, we talk about this CRUD, create, read, update, delete paradigm, where here we actually have a bit of a different paradigm. It's create, read, update, and transfer paradigm, because the difference comes from this new capability of actually really owning the state of this asset. So what does that actually look like from a bit of a zoomed out perspective on the next slide? You basically get a relatively large graph, and this graph is the entirety of the DKG illustrated here for demo purposes. So your UIL would actually point to a specific asset in the graph. And if we please continue, just open up the entire slide. So basically the entire asset graph is connected to this UIL. So all of these, the entirety of the DKG is composed of these, and you can discover them either via search, or you can actually do what knowledge graphs are made for. You can do a fully fledged query on the graph. And via the Sparkle query language, I guess we skipped a little bit that part, but
yeah,
it's okay. Yeah, essentially the point being is that, as I mentioned, there's a very powerful query language which allows you to query this graph for all kinds of interesting connections. And that could be connections such as asking for a certain group of things, like a group of objects or assets in the physical world, like let's say where does a certain object come from, or what are the ingredients that came into a certain product, or it can be something from the digital world or the generally Web3, like for example, what was the history of a certain NFT, or what are the some conditions that had to be let's say sufficed or connected towards some other activity to be able to happen. So all of these can be modeled very nicely in the graph. There's a lot of use cases, and you can look up just generally all kinds of graph databases, even centralized systems. They tend to solve a lot of these connectivity problems on a centralized level, but on a decentralized level, nothing like that, like the DKG exists, exactly because of the reason of having the ability to connect all these things together and retain ownership of all of these asset graphs on your own. So that is a very short update into what moves us from data into knowledge assets, and the ability to actually transform this traditional notion of just having some bunch of data in a database or a file that you can sort of sift through, versus actually having an asset that you own and that you can put into the market, as well as verifiably share with anybody, with obviously a trusted source, because all of these graphs, and I think I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but all of these graphs, when you create them, as you've seen in this short example, all of them have a verifiable issuer. All of them actually contain a transaction on the blockchain, knowing who exactly made this. There is a distinct history of provenance, basically, of all of the data that's within the graph. So that's where I will stop for now.
Yeah, I think we went in it kind of covering the really the how of the functioning of the assets pretty well, in terms of what you can do with them, how you can create them, how do they function as a part of the global decentralized knowledge graph. Given that there we might have listeners also that aren't privy to everything's happening within the wider ecosystem, it might be worth just mentioning as well. And as an echo, that thing will appear across this presentation a couple of more times, is what really those assets can be or are today, even as we'll launch the network, what those assets will be, and why this kind of like a ubiquitous or generalized infrastructure really is powerful. So when we look at assets, really those things can have a lot of different flavors, if you will, and kind of the starting point or the things that have already been present within the adoption of OriginTrail in the past are really are a good example of that, and that would be different real world assets, right? So that can be either physical items that you own, or that certain items that are present within the supply chains, or they can even be assets that are totally digitally native, like certain credentials that are being issued. Or even a Web3 asset, like an NFT. And now the very cool thing is that we can have all these different types of assets described using the same way that Branimir was just explaining right now. So all of those can really share the same playing ground, the same mutual shared infrastructure, where another important thing appears is that not everything really is public. So as Branimir was saying, that you have these asset graphs, not the entirety of asset graph really usually is not public, because especially within the use cases of enterprise use cases, or the real world deployments, a lot of these information or this knowledge is kind of like a business secret, if you will, or it's critical. So you want to have it protected. Sometimes it needs to be protected because it's sensitive personal data. And the very cool thing about decentralized knowledge graph is that these assets can deliver on both they can extract both value propositions. You are able to keep whatever is critical within, let's say, business sensitive information within the private part of the knowledge graph of your asset, but still make it discoverable, if you will, by different keywords. And whatever is there to be really publicly have the highest level of integrity or discoverability, you can publish it as a whole, as a part of the public decentralized knowledge graph. So all these different components of these knowledge assets are super powerful when you're trying to devise new innovative use cases or innovative business models, because not only do we have now some persistence of data available, but we also have the ownability of the knowledge graph. And again, that it's not something that is there to be solely within the conceptual phase. These things where the knowledge assets came from the adoption of the ecosystem and the requirements, if you will, of these different use cases that were deployed. So that's to me, at least, really what makes it so exciting, because I can already picture all these different, and I did say that we're going to echo some of this content, so you'll see it, you'll have a chance to see it also later in the presentation, really how it shows up or how it's being implemented hands-on, and really how do all these what may seem to be very technical things are becoming very useful. Like usability is right there. So 4 functions that you can do with an asset, like Brana was just walking through, right? Create, update, transfer, or read it, right? So you can, it's very usable thing. That's the one thing that I wanted to maybe just add to this, so we can hop on the next one, I think. Yeah, Brana, you want to walk through this?
Sure. So essentially, all things considered, and to wrap up the discussion with these new primitives, we really move from URLs to URLs. So we start with uniform asset locators, and those actually have several different flavors, but we won't go into the depth of obviously how they work. This is something you can see in the documentation, but essentially think of an evolved, actually interoperable system, which is completely according to the standards of usual URIs and URLs, extended for the DKG. So with their specific protocol prefix, but also additional elements to make it verifiable. So for example, the ability to address an asset contains actually the address of your NFT, so the contract address and the NFT token ID, as well as the actual hash of the state in the graph. So you're able to really address anything, even a historical state in the DKG, by just using one verifiable and actually unchangeable URL. It's completely owned by you, and it is also unique, globally unique, and enforceably unique, because we cannot have the same two of the same identifiers on a single blockchain. So this is one building block, one of the primitives. The second one is actually user-controlled algorithms, or more specifically in the case of DKG, the way you find things, search or query. And that is the difference between Web3 and Web2, is that generally Web2, any website you go to, essentially run a search algorithm on that particular system. And you generally don't know what the algorithm does in the background. Obviously, you don't see it. It doesn't execute on any of your machines, like not on your phone, not on your computer, not on your server. While the idea with the DKG is that you can do exactly that. And not just that, basically, when you think about search, you can think about it a bit more broadly. Let's say Twitter, for example, when you load your feed, the Twitter feed, essentially that's kind of a search algorithm, which in a way queries the Twitter database saying, give me tweets that would be interesting for me of the people that I follow. Actually, that depends on how you choose. Like, you have options, right? There's two options in Twitter, the latest tweets, and then there's the other one. And people complain about it, have complained about it for a reason, because whoever controls this algorithm controls what you see, right? So it's not just about the data and how verifiable the data is, it's actually who runs the algorithm. What does the algorithm do? How does this search function or query function work? And with the DKG, the point is, as this is a completely decentralized, permissionless, and open source system, you can do it on your own. So you can implement a search algorithm on your website that queries the DKG. You can open source it. You can implement something and use it on any device without the need to have it coupled with some centralized entity. It doesn't exist essentially in the world of OriginTrail, and therefore it's built in such a way that such queries can be executed over the network and return sensible results. Now, what are these sensible results? Well, they are basically assets that all of us basically using the network create. But from the different paradigm of Web 2, where we had the read-write paradigm, we really truly now own these assets. So it's a read-write-own Web 3 paradigm for the DKG. So basically that means you own the identifiers. And if we can click through the slides, that would be good. You can own the identifiers, which are your Web3 asset URLs. You basically can make your assets discoverable in the way you want them. And you can discover through the graph the way you want to. The algorithm is under control of whoever you want to pick, or you can build it on your own. And then finally, the read-write-own paradigm enables you to have completely your own Web3 asset knowledge graphs in its entirety, connecting to anything you would want. So these are the three core primitive paradigms within OriginTrail version 6, which are coming today to life on the mainnet. Okay. Yes. Tomasz, you want to take over this one, perhaps?
Sure. So as we were kind of walking through the through the building blocks of the OriginTrail V6 beast, we can also look at the network participants that are involved in this ecosystem, basically running the whole thing or using it. So you see kind of four groups really being formed here around the center, which is a great community created graphics, by the way. So just to shout out. And we see on the left-hand side, we'll have asset publishers, token holders on top, asset consumers on the right, and system runners on the bottom. And we start with asset publishers because this is the thing that we were talking about right now. So we were looking at knowledge assets and how do we create them? What can we do with them? Those are the asset publishers or the asset owners that are interacting with their assets. They would be those that group of network participants. And really, it can be either organizations who are setting up different business use cases for them, or we can find individuals there, especially like we've seen that there's the project Magnify that showcased also how different individuals or users can get involved within this as asset publishers in this ecosystem. So what they do is, like we were talking before, so you can mint the Web3 UIL, so you can create your knowledge assets with that functions, and then you can also kind of use the trace in the expanded tokenomics, which will be kind of doing a little roundup after on the next slide. You can use your trace to increase the discoverability potential for your assets by staking on their keywords. As we look at the kind of on the bottom, we'll make a what is it, that counterclockwise circle, I guess, on the system runners down below, because those assets get published somewhere and they get published on the infrastructure, and that infrastructure is run by the system runners. So they'll be your node runners on the OriginTrail decentralized network. They'll be spinning up their V6 nodes, and for them there's a new component in the tokenomics as well within the V6, which we'll mention, and that is that they stake they create a stake of trace on their node, which has an impact also on the success of them being selected for rewards for holding that data. So the system runners are the physical network of OriginTrail decentralized network, where the decentralized knowledge graph is being hosted, and they are the ones that also interact with the blockchain layer underneath. So as the system runners, I'm just skimming through if I forgot anything. Of course, there's the system runners are. One part is that I was just talking about is the decentralized knowledge graph on the blockchain layer with the OriginTrail parachain. There's the second part of the system, or second group of system runners, which pertains to the collators on the parachain. But we'll kind of park a little bit that description for now and focus kind of really on the V6, which is more on the decentralized knowledge graph system runners, or on the DKG node runners. Moving towards the right-hand side, we'll have the asset consumers, which are those participants that are then looking into the infrastructure. Or they want to figure something out. They either are looking for different assets, or they know exactly for which asset they're looking at, or they want to discover an asset. In both cases, they're able to utilize the decentralized knowledge graph to do that, either to get something from about an asset, or push a network-wide search. And of course, depending on the status of that asset that they have found, they're able to either purchase it or create links, connections with other assets that they might want to. Yeah, so we'll have asset consumers on the right-hand side, and then on top, there's token holders, again, with a few expanded tokenomics capabilities within the V6, most notably the delegating trace to the DKG nodes. Again, that kind of echoes back to the fact that the nodes do have something to gain from a larger stake in V6 network, because they are more likely to get selected for the rewards if their stake is larger. That whole thing is described within an RFC, which has been passed, I think it's 14, if I'm not mistaken. So whoever wants to kind of deep dive into more nuances around the whole choreography of how different nodes are selected for rewards and stuff like that, that's going to be a very good resource for you to deep dive. But from the perspective of the tokenomics, really the core things, and from these network participants, is that that stake matters. And token holders will be able to put their trace to work by delegating them to, and of course, sharing the rewards, as well as sharing the risks with the selected node runner. So that's going to be your network participants when it comes to V6. Again, a little bit more vibrant than what we were used to so far, perhaps, but definitely something that's going to create a lot of very interesting momentum, and ultimately deliver a more secure and a more scalable and a more exciting overall as well OriginTrail ecosystem. Yeah, Brana, I'm not sure if I missed anything, or do you guys want to jump in? All good. All right.
Yeah, I think we can move to the next slide that details the novel.
Yeah, so this is the expanded tokenomics, right? So this is from the participants. You'll have it dialed down here on three really things that make sense to talk about. And note taking, I was kind of touching on that already a little bit. So node staking really has an important function of ensuring that the participants within that are running the network, or the system runners, are doing their job well, and are good actors in this ecosystem. It's not intended to punish kind of inadvertently or anything like that, but it is intended to be for the stake to act as a collateral for a job being well done. Again, more details on how really that is carried out can be found in documentations, but for now we can say that the stake is there to increase the likelihood of you receiving the rewards as a system runner, and at the same time it's your skin in the game, saying, look, I'm going to do a good job and I'm willing to stake X amount of trace for that, and if I'm not doing a good job, then I am opening up myself for a punishment as well. So there's a reward and there's a punishment, of course. But yeah, compared to really the jump to the V6 is that right now the stake has a bigger impact, and it has an impact that makes the whole network more secure. So it goes in the same direction as it was before. It just gained more impact in version 6, which is it's very exciting. And then on the second part, it's really another staking capability, and that's the one that we mentioned with the asset publishers, and it has to do with discoverability staking. So Brana mentioned that in your anatomy of an asset, you connect your asset with a keyword, and that keyword means that if I'm searching the decentralized network for an awesome guy keyword, and I've associated my Tomasz with an awesome guy keyword, my asset Tomasz should pop up, right? And if I really want to make sure that an awesome guy, my asset's going to be on the top of that list of discoverability, again, I should be there to put some stake in behind that wish. And if I put trace next to the pair of my asset and the keyword of awesome guy, then I'll be popping up higher on that discoverability list. So in a way, you can picture it like an AdSense on Google, where you're kind of like ensuring that the search result is higher up by purchasing or some ad space on Google. Except that this is not an ad space, but it still is discoverability. It is a ranking list, and having a higher stake is gonna make your default response put your asset higher up in that ranking. And then the last one is really delegated node staking, which is also very cool, because this is again a chance for trace holders that aren't necessarily interested in really deep diving into the technicalities of setting up a node and running a node and ensuring it runs the perfect way. With the delegated node staking, what's enabled is that the trace holders will have a way to delegate their stake towards the selected node runners. Of course, there's going to be parameters. There's going to be a way of really defining how that relationship is managed. But the bottom line is that you'll be able to take part in this token economy without running the node by yourself, sharing the risk together with the node runner, and as well sharing the rewards with the node runners as well, which is again something that is entirely new for the V6, but it's not new in terms of the value that we're trying to pursue as the network, because even this delegated stake goes again towards securing the network to a higher degree, because that stake acts the exact same way as the node staking, as the stake provided by the node runner is. So like it's the same purpose, but it gives a chance for a more inclusive way of getting involved in the tokenomics, and I'm excited about that one.
Perhaps just to clarify a bit, so these three new components are basically there to also enable more utilization of existing trace, or more users to come into participation with the system. And that means pretty much anybody can run a node from the perspective of not just the software being open source, but the network being permissionless, as long as they know how to run one, right? So this was the case for all versions up to version 6, and it's obviously still part of version 6. So anybody can run a node. If you want to be part of a DKG graph, you can just spin up your node wherever you are in the world, as long as as long as you know how to run it, as long as you have technical skills, and you require some technical skills. It's not a trivial thing, but it's not like extremely hard either. If you know how to manage a server and how to really take care of a peer-to-peer system, something that's connected with the others in the world, then it's something for you. And then running a node, you would need to stake tokens as part of the collateral in the network. But if you don't know how to run a node, or you don't want to be doing this, or you just don't have experience for this type of technical skill set that is needed, then you can literally delegate or stake for discoverability. So there's going to be more ways to engage rather than it was so far, by just running basically a node and engaging your trace with it. Obviously, all of these are rolling out one by one. So we're starting with node staking and then introducing the two other expansions, particularly delegated node staking, immediately, basically one after the other. So you want to say something, Tomasz?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying we'll run through those in the last section of the event anyway. Yes. So we can. I mean, because I'm giddy. The next slide is really an exciting one, as we've covered the kind of the initial overview of the V6, and it might have been content that you've been familiar with. It might have been totally new for you, but it was all there to build up really towards the moment that we're kind of nearing right now, and we're getting our hands dirty a little bit. So it's the OriginTrail V6, and I'm the one that can say it. Network launch. That's that's really cool. Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Yuri is gonna shut down his screen share right now, and Branimir is gonna be the one that is turning it on, and will be
very exciting.
Will be present firsthand, or first eye, or first ear to the OriginTrail V6 network getting launched. And I'll stop rambling now. So Brana, do your thing.
So as we already spoke, since it's a decentralized network, there's no central place where you can sort of click and launch. So it's not a button, big red one, but it's actually, for this launch ceremony, we're going to actually publish an asset together. I'm going to show you how to do it. As the network is already essentially launched, there's already several nodes running. And obviously we turned it on and tested it before we came to this event. So essentially I'm here to declare that it's launched by publishing an asset together with you. So I'll show how to do it. This is quite simple. I'm going to share my screen. So somebody can just tell me, like, if I did. You guys see it?
Yeah,
we do.
Okay.
We do.
Maybe I can. Okay, so essentially, let me open simpler text editor. So what you're seeing here is some code. If you're a developer, it will be easy to understand. If you're not, I'll try to sort of skim through it very quickly. So essentially, this is just a very simple script that connects to the DKG via some node. So basically also connects to the OriginTrail parachain blockchain via a certain wallet, obviously. And then we're going to basically publish an asset. And this asset the content, the asset graph, as I mentioned, looks like this. We're going to take an interesting quote. Knowledge is the only thing which increases when shared. So in that sense, we're going to be publishing this as the first official quote on this day. So there's a certain set of options that I won't go too deep into, but like I mentioned them previously, you can basically set certain epochs, you can set certain retry parameters for this script, and I will just show you how it actually runs. So first we're going to be connecting to a node. So this is basically just showing us the information from the node. If I successfully connect, it will return the node version. Then it will basically tell us that we're creating an asset via the asset create command, as I mentioned already, using the data I showed you just now. And then we will see a UAL when it comes back. I actually fetch the owner, and we're gonna actually get the asset. So I'm gonna simply run this script from my terminal. So essentially what I need to do is node.demo.js. And right now I have connected to the node. It says that the node info has been received. The version is 6 as we expected. So I connected to the right node. It's not something from version 5. And right now it's creating an asset on the DKG. So what's happening now is, first of all, this client, my application is connecting to the blockchain and actually minting that NFT that I talked about. This is not an NFT, just like a picture type of NFT or your Bored Ape or sort. It's a component in the asset, like I mentioned. And with this asset, with this NFT, it associates the actual hash of this graph that I just showed you. So this is the standardized JSON LD notation, as it's called, with a standardized schema from schema.org. And essentially it creates, oh, and there it is. It just created the asset. So it took a bit for the transaction to mine. And what I got back is actually that this asset has this particular UAL. As I mentioned, it has a bit of interesting components. For example, here it says that this is the OriginTrail parachain. We have the actual smart contract of the DKG NFTs here, and we see that this is token ID 72. This assertion ID is essentially the hash that I just talked about. So if I were to get this, as we call it, assertion, or the content of this asset, the asset graph, here it is. We can see it, and it shows the same quote. Knowledge is the only thing which increases when shared, with the expanded, obviously, schema.org JSON LD file. Also, I did call the getAssetOwner function, so you can see that I used this wallet to create it. Therefore, if anybody wants to query and gets to this asset, they're able to see the owner. They're also able to see the issuer once they query for the assertion ID. So not to go too technical, there's a lot of things you can do. Essentially, all of these rely on verifiable asset graphs. And with this, I guess I can officially declare the network has been launched. So welcome to OriginTrail version 6.
It was awesome, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, very good to hear that. Very good to hear that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, Yuri is getting in. So now we saw it. We saw something kind of like Branimir doing the hard work using the terminal and putting in all the commands. And now Yuri is going to show you how, from Germany things are just easier.
Yeah,
I was also wondering, should I open a beer now, or is it time for champagne, or should champagne wait out for the network operating system to start spitting out assets? What's the protocol here?
I think you can always have a beer.
Yeah.
But
that's a good idea.
But I'll wait it out.
I will just share my screen and just give me a confirmation that you can see it.
You're
Fantastic.
Back online.
As the guys already mentioned, Branimir showed you a not so difficult way, relatively easy way to create an asset on the new V6. I'm going to show you an even easier way to create many assets with the network operating system. And before going into the demos and showing how everything works inside and out, just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction as to what the NOS actually is and why it's there. So we talked about and we saw the first asset being launched on the new DKG version 6. So we have now an infrastructure that is there to provide discoverable, verifiable, and valuable assets. But those assets, they come from somewhere, especially when we're talking about enterprises. They are created from data. And this data usually comes from enterprise IT systems. And there's a whole variety of them, right? A lot of abbreviations here: ERPs, enterprise resource planning, transport management systems, warehouse management system, learning management systems, a lot of management systems, right? And there's a whole array of other systems that organizations use where this data is kind of locked inside, just waiting to be, transformed into discoverable and verifiable assets so it can be connected and used in a more valuable way. And this is exactly where the network operating system comes in. So we've developed and upgraded now the network operating system to work, obviously, with the new version 6 of OriginTrail, and it has a lot of new and exciting stuff. But essentially, what the network operating system does for enterprises and organizations, it provides them a means through different sets of tools to actually take data out of their systems and turn it into valuable assets. And this is done through 3 kind of key components. The first, or tools. The first is the data ingestion mechanisms that enterprise users can actually very easily connect NOS to their system for data systems for data ingestion. The second set of tools is the asset creation, and this is the kind of the most important piece, because this is what allows them. So these tools, this set of tools allows that data to be transformed into valuable assets. And this is also where a lot of the standards that we use come in to ensure those assets that we create on OriginTrail version 6 are interoperable. So here we're talking about the W3C verifiable credentials. We're talking about GS1, a whole host of GS1 standards, especially when we're talking about supply chain. So anything from EPCIS 2.0 to global data model standards to GLN data model standards. So all of these standards we can essentially apply to the data coming in from the systems, and the assets that are created with those standards are interoperable. And more standards, as we go along, more standards are actually, of course, coming into play when we're talking about supply chains, also looking at the e-bill of lading standards and these types of things. Everything essentially aimed at organizations being able to create assets, interoperable and valuable assets from their data. And the more standards that the network operating system can help with, the more assets can actually be created and the more value can be generated. Now we've gone from the enterprise systems data towards NOS. The assets were created on OriginTrail version 6. They're all linked together nicely. They are discoverable, they're verifiable. Now what comes next? We are building business applications on top of this. And this is where, of course, the most of the business value is then generated. Once these assets are there, they can come from a variety of different business partners. That's the more business partners they come from, the more value there is. That's the law of network effects. And here we're talking about existing applications like A-Trust that we developed together with the British Standards Institution that focuses on providing trust and transparency in pharmaceutical supply chains. We're talking about credential verification through BSI certificates that we'll also have a look at in a little bit in a bit more live action demo. We're talking, more trade-oriented credentials such as Scan Trusted Factory, where the credentials, so the security audits by factories all factories in Asia are actually shared across a network of the largest US retailers and enable them to import into the US faster and with fewer obstacles. To Church of Oak, for example, where we're talking about simply providing grain to glass transparency for a bottle of produced whiskey so that the consumers can know exactly what went into their whiskey and what happened to it. And of course, countless other applications that are being developed, are already developed, or of course will come in the future, including the Swiss Railways, a host of applications that we're having, and we have another exciting announcement, of course, that I'll go into after the demo. So this is where the network operating system is. This is what it does. This is how value is delivered. And just to recap once more, on the right side, we have data from the systems transformed into assets, valuable, interoperable, and connected and discoverable assets. And of course, business value that is delivered through business applications that sit on top of all of this and can actually read the connected and linked assets from the decentralized knowledge graph. So I'll just stop here in case, I don't know, does anyone, Tomasz, Branimir, Shiga, want to add anything before we get into the demo?
I don't have anything. I'm looking forward to the demo. I'm pumped. I think you did a good job, like showcasing where NOS plays.
Fantastic. Okay, then I will just have to stop sharing and reshare my screen really quickly. There we go. Okay, so we have two demos essentially today for you guys. One is only half a demo because it's really actually creating, we'll be creating production assets on the version 6 mainnet, so it's only half a demo, but still I will guide you through how everything works. This is around training certificates and how they're created, how they're ingested, how the assets are created. This is what we'll look at first, and then the second one is actually so this is looking at, let's say, digital assets, credentials, right? And the other one will be looking at more how we can turn physical assets into knowledge assets on OriginTrail, which will look into the whiskey supply chain. But without further ado, I'm just going to ask Stevan really quickly to simulate essentially what really happens with the system. So Stevan will share 10 demo certificates for now through the API, which simulates essentially what happens with BSI systems. They're sharing anytime a certificate is issued, it automatically goes to NOS. The NOS ingests the data, processes it. So let me just quickly refresh. Should see there we go. So this is a input file that just arrived essentially, and we can see that in this input file we have 10 certificates which are ready to be turned into assets. And I'm just going to maybe open one of them so you guys can see, since they're demo. So this is a bit of a nicer view of the JSON LD file that contains and maybe I can zoom in. Let me see. Yeah. That contains the certificate information. Of course, all of this is the demo. You can see I did something here I did a demo course in programming in this one. Took me about 5 days, and now I'm an expert. So we have all of these 10 certificates, stage files. They're ready to be turned into assets, and essentially everything, this is done automatically. I'm doing this manually just for the demonstration purposes. Essentially, I can just select all of these, just zoom back out, all of these files that are ready for asset creation, and I can say create assets from selected files. Now, all of these assets are automatically being created, and let me quickly go into process. It will take a little bit as this is happening. I just wanted to guide you through what's going on. So all of these prepared JSON LD documents, files with certificate information are now getting via a couple of wallets actually that are linked to the same BSI identity, as we'll see later in as we look at the graph, are actually getting created. And we can see we have a bunch of, or actually we have two wallets that we use as certificate, as BSI training certificates identities. And these assets are now getting created. So as soon as assets get created, we actually be able to see the UALs over here, and we can actually explore into and see into the graph and see how these assets are actually connected in this case. So let's just give this, there we go. The first two have been created. So without leaving you waiting for the others to get created, I will just go back into the assets module very quickly, where we can see these assets. These are still from earlier today, but these two that were just created now. And this is a list view. So we can see that for all wallets that are associated with this user, which is the BSI training certificates user, we can see which assets were created. Now, this is just a simple list view, not super exciting, but you can see, you can look into the asset and see, for example, what the particular certificate is about. Now, if we go into the graph view, we'll see that these two wallets that are tied to this particular user. And now if I click on it, just quickly expand both, we can see all of the certificates that have currently been published. So the two that I just published, and the rest are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from earlier today. And we can see, and as we'll also just move these. These are very fun to move around and play with. But this is essentially the actual representation of the graph. So we can see the two wallets as identities that are tied to the user, called BSI training certificates, and all of the certificates that are actually, you can see the ID of the certificate here, that are actually connected to that or issued by that user. And we'll have a look into the data module for some more exciting stuff on actually pushing the real certificates through. But one cool point is just wanted to highlight here is that also when this happens, so while assets were created, of course the users can explore this here through this view, through list view. But the what happens for the BSI certificates is really that there's an application in their learning management system, essentially, that then interacts with the decentralized knowledge graph and enables users to actually verify and confirm and provide also their certificates for verification to potential employers, potential bids that they're giving out. So it makes it a lot easier to show their credential through an actual application that is to the naked eye no different than any other type of application that you would be using in a business environment, except that under the hood, it's actually utilizing the version 6 and the power of both knowledge graphs and blockchains. So this is just a simple kind of very easy, right? So I didn't even do anything. I just asked Stevan to push the API, and then the NOS did the rest. But returning back to the data module, we'll see here currently some of the certificates are still processing, but we see down here we have over 20,000 of them now. We have another 20,000 incoming that will be processed in the next day. So we have 40,000 certificates that will be in the next days created as assets on the just launched network. So this is very exciting. And of course, all of the new certificates that are coming in that are being created, over 200,000 per year after all of the countries are deployed, this will happen to them, right? Coming in, created as assets, and then they will become available on their in the BSI learning management system for users to actually use. And Branimir published one asset. I will try now to publish 20,000 or put them in queue. It will take a little bit longer than the one, but maybe just a note, because I didn't explain this earlier. So here we have two tabs in the data, right? We have the ingested and the processed, and the ingested is just the file, the document, the JSON that comes in before it's processed by certain pipelines in the NOS and gets ready for asset creation. So this can come in any form and shape, and then user can define the pipelines that turn those input files into a structured, standard-based, as we'll see in the next demo, a little bit clearer assets, essentially. And this is what we then see here in the process tab. We can see all of the ones that we actually published before. So all of the demo have been created. They're all here. We can have a look, right? So this is again me. Did a demo course on public speaking. That's why I'm doing so well today. And I will now actually just we have a button here, create assets from already staged pile, right? So we have some of these have been created, but we have around 20,000 of them that are ready to be created. So I'm just gonna do this and start the queue of putting 40,000 certificates, or turning 40,000 certificates into assets on the DKG. And that's yeah,
freaking awesome.
And as this is processing, of course, this will now we can do the other demo and then look back and see how the graph is growing, of course. But before we go into the second demo, yeah, anything
and
anyone wants
this
to
is
add?
This is a transformation of a use case that has been leveraging OriginTrail, the older version, and now we're transforming it in a matter of minutes. We're bringing assets onto DKG, and these assets are representing 20,000 people. And the goal, if I'm not mistaken, is to go up to 200,000. certificates
Yes,
with
agree.
specific holders. And all these things, transformations are being done in a matter of minutes. Of course, the relaying of asset creation takes some time, but deploying the use case using the network operating system, it can be a matter of minutes even, and it's really awesome to see how this beast works. Kudos for the presentation.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I just checked also in with Stevan. So with all of these, it's 20,000 at once. They're getting processed. So I will go into the staging environment for the next demo, because this one we did in, there we go. So I'll have Stevan look into that, and we'll go into the staging environment, because that was the production, right? So that one was production ready, and this demo that we'll do here is around whiskey traceability, is still being finalized, so it's not yet deployed to production, but it does give some very cool examples. So what's happening here is we have pre-uploaded already and turned into assets documents, essentially from grain all the way up to bottling. So we have we know where the grain came from, we know how it was malted, we know how it was distilled, we know which casks it went into, how it was aged, how it was blended, and then the bottling is the last piece that I will actually upload now to demonstrate how we can work also with physical assets, essentially, such as bottles, casks, and all of these typical supply chain items, and specifically also around standards such as the GS1 EPCIS, which is pretty cool to see here. And then of course this will, the same as with certificates, are used in the learning management system of BSI. The same way this data, that connected link data end to end, is then used in the application that will be released soon for consumers to actually see, scan the bottle of whiskey and see where it came from, so grain to glass. So that being said, it's the same, essentially the same concept, the same model. We have the data and assets module. One thing I do need to change, since we switched to staging, just change this to testnet. Just confirm. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll upload, in this case, also to show the flexibility of a little bit of NOS. We looked at API ingestion before. Right now, I'll upload a file manually, so that we can see how that works as well. So it will be the file that I have. Where is it? Over here. So data is being processed now. So what will happen? There are a couple of things that will happen. We'll see the data, and let me refresh. Actually, we should see a couple of them that say data processing not started. So what happened here? You can see one of them is processed, the others are not. It's because the data pipeline is set in a way that first the event asset needs to be created, and then the other assets are actually created so that the links can work properly. So this is all done automatically, handled essentially by the NOS. So this won't start. You will see it cannot be processed until this particular asset is created. So, this particular asset is created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this asset, which is an EPCIS 2.0 event. So I'm going to create this and just give it, let's just see, give it a minute or two. And as this is created, what happens, I can tell you, it's a bit technical, but still what's happening now, as the asset gets created, it will return the UAL needed to insert into all of the other assets that could not be processed at the time because the UAL was not available. And as soon as this is done, we'll actually see how the other assets automatically get created. So let's just give this a second. It's just one, so it shouldn't be too bad. And we can, in the meanwhile, also look at what this actually looks like. So this is the event, right? So we can see that this is a transformation event, that we have a certain amount of bottles that are being created. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are being created from a specific other asset, which actually seems like it's been, no, not yet. From another asset, which will be actually the vetting, so the blending of all of the things in the text. So okay, now the asset has been created. Let me just confirm also, then you will see that all of these, refresh, oops, sorry. Up. No. 1 second. Okay, let me just open in assets, so these should automatically get going. I'll ask Stevan to have a look in the meanwhile, but let's have a look at the asset that was created right now, which was this one. So we can either, what I'm going to do is, because there's a lot of assets that are related to, as you can imagine, going from grain to glass, there's a lot of assets. So if we go into the graph view, we'll see a lot of things actually going on here, right? So you see all of the assets and their related things connected. So, but then it's like you can really explore for a while if you don't know where to start. So what we're going to do, and let me just check if these were actually processed now. Fantastic. So they were actually all processed and assets created. So you can see all of these. And let me just move this screen here. All of these are actually bottles, right? So you can see here, the first one was the event, and these are actually bottles. So you can see what the bottle ID is, what the ABV, what was when it was bottled, all of the bottle details that you would want to have as an asset owner. And I will return now actually to the assets module, and I will take a bottle rather than a refresh. I guess they're still creating. Let's just give it a second. Just double check. Yeah, I need to actually create them. That is my bad, since we set it to manual. So I'll create assets from these. So we created the event, creating the bottles now. So just give us another second. So this is created because then it looks really cool, especially because we'll be able to see how these types of standards, such as the GS1 EPCIS, actually essentially gets transformed into an RDF format, which is really cool to see, and nice to see how all of these standards can actually work together.
Perhaps let me stop you just there for while we wait. So essentially, the what we've seen just now is the newest version of the EPCS GS1 EPCS standard, which specifies JSON LD and JSON format. And essentially, the data that was packaged in this new format comes from the actual example from the supply chain. So that you'll see all kinds of events happen within there. And these events, the ones that Yuri is now showing, are basically all structured based on this standard. And as we can see, the assets have been created. Meanwhile, I just want to finish that thought with essentially showing how we combine this very new version of a relatively traditional standard in supply chains, which has nothing to do with, it started way before we had both knowledge graph and blockchain technology, and made it interoperable with the DKG. So the DKG enables now anybody who has the ability to query this, who knows for what to look for, essentially. For example, for a barcode, which is another GS1 standard, or for a more modern version of the barcode, like a digital link, essentially via this querying, through the connection in the DKG, you're able to find all of these. And the nicer they are made, such as by standards, other standards also being supported, such as verifiable credentials, for example, which also rely on JSON LD as the serialization. Different types of systems, different types of data models can get translated into the same graph and then queried across globally. So yeah, do not take over your spot. Just wanted to add a little bit more clarity to that, because I feel it's quite powerful.
Definitely, thanks, Branimir. And in the meanwhile, the assets were created, so we can actually look into them. And I'll just double check that.
And your TV got fixed. Who would have thought?
Yes, I did not put the video on loop, so it shut down. So that's an amateur mistake. So yeah, this one, for example, is a bottle. So was it this? Yeah, so we can see this is a bottle that I will now just grab so that we don't start exploring the graph randomly. But essentially, it's the same thing. We have the an identity, right, which is an account, and we have different wallets that are used, that are tied to this account, that are used for publishing data. So what I'll do is I'll just search for that specific UAL. Second. Oops, did I change this to? Let me refresh. There is sometimes a bit of a glitch when it comes to changing between testnet and mainnet very often. But let me try one more time to resolve this. There we go.
Yeah, so this is the equivalent of the operation of the DKG.get that I've executed in the script. But the point is that it executes through a browser, for example, or some interface. It doesn't have to obviously be done the way I showed it. So yes, it's literally the same operation.
Yeah, and here we can see the bottle, right? So we can, if we query for the asset as a bottle, we can just see the bottle and all of the attributes that this particular bottle has in the form of an RDF graph. So you see the number of vatting that was used. You can see what bottle, what the percentage of alcohol, all of these, what the label supplier was, closure, all of these parameters. But the interesting part is now, okay, this is an asset, right, in itself. But it's tied to other assets, right? So I'm going to just pull this one out. So this, it says here it's connected to, we can see this blue dot is another asset. And this is actually the EPCIS event. So the EPCIS event actually refers to, or is linked to the asset, all of the bottles that we created because they were created in the same event. And you can actually see, very cool, in here that this is an event because you can see, okay, we have the BIS step that's commissioning. We see business location. There is a business location. We see the disposition, all of the parameters that are used or that are part of the EPCIS 2.0 event. You can see them here in RDF form, right? And we could go like this all the way back to the grain. So we can see, okay, we have two assets that this event refers to. So we have, let's open this one. I'll just open two more since it's taking a bit of time, but so you can see, and this is what the application then does, right? Application that actually is used to scan and get the grain to glass actually queries all of this data and understands it and puts it in more user friendly, readable way. But there we go. For example, here we can see that this is actually the vatting that was in the event. So we can see what is the vatting when the vatting date of vatting was. You can see what the vatting story is, all of these things that are then part of the things displayed in the app. And just I'm going to open another one, which is over here, and this will be another event. So you can see this vatting was used to produce all of these 5 bottles, and then we can see the event where this vatting was created, which will be blending of casks, right? So that will be a lot of casks associated with this particular event. And let's just get it. And as this is opening up, one thing to that is exciting about this, and now we're moving left in the supply chain, but it's taking a little bit too long. Maybe there's a glitch. But as we're moving left to the supply chain, yes, we're getting to the grain. We started at the glass, if you will. But the supply chain doesn't, with the DKG, doesn't necessarily end at when the bottle is created. For example, think about it in this sense. So you bought a bottle, you get the NFT as proof of ownership, and you can actually keep it for yourself. But then you can, there we go. Then you can actually add additional assertions to, like, reviews, like proofs that, you know, the bottle, somebody signed the bottle, that something happened to the bottle that might increase the value of the asset, especially if it's a particularly precious bottle of whiskey. but the same applies to, all of the other physical assets. If you're talking about vehicles, if we're talking about art, if you're talking about any type of collectible where you would be able to increase the value by adding additional assertions to it as the owner of the asset. This is something that is very exciting and actually one of the more kind of enabling next steps that Web3 brings, and through OriginTrail V6, this has become very possible in very kind of user-friendly way. But let's have the last look before I bore you to death with the demo. Just have a last look at this event over here, which is you can see that this is also a commissioning event. This is where the vatting was created. The vatting is just a blend of all of the casks that then are mixed together and the bottles are filled. We can see when it happens. So this is the event time, the disposition, all of the parameters of VPCS 2.0. But if we open one of these unnamed assets, this would be a cask. But I don't think we assign. I'll just open one of them just to see if we assigned some parameters to it, so you can see how cool that particular piece looks. And then we'll be done with the demo. There we go. I'll open it up here. Yeah. So here you can see one cask that went in, right? And all of the parameters of that cask. What is the year of spirit that it was filled in? What was the gross weight, the tare weight, when it was distilled, when it was filled, all of these things. What is the mash bill? So very exciting stuff. Not the most user readable way, right? That's why we build applications on top, but this is the nicest kind of representation of RDF and in combination with other standards that that happens in very complex supply chains. Like this is a relatively complex supply chain to understand everything that is going on. So this is what we wanted to show you. This is then used for the application that we'll be hopefully able to show you in the next year. That is the consumer-facing one. And before finalizing, I will just have a
I just wanted to say I found something in a somewhat less digital form. We also checked out the process in person at some point.
We spent some time in the actual distillery, which is really cool, and that was it's good to understand all these things, but it's nice to see them working so well and connected in this form or shape. I just wanted to check on the assets over here. So what's going on? So I think we'll have there we go. Yeah, there's already a bunch that have been created. So if these are the certificates that we looked at before. If you remember, we had 5 or 6 in each wallet. Now we have quite a couple already in both. So in the next days, expect this particular graph to grow to the point where, of course, you would not be able to click on anything because it's way too many of assets connected to them. Okay, I've been talking too long, it appears, since my throat is dry. But this will be it for the NOS demo. Before we move into the next section, anything else from Tomasz, Žiga, Brana?
That was very smooth. I think Elon Musk should consider hiring the team to demonstrate the next reveal of his Cybertruck.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm driving.
You're driving.
Yeah.
Now I will reshare just the presentation. Just 1 second. Let me find the button. Yeah, there we go. And you guys give me a thumbs up when it's back up.
Yep. You're good.
Okay.
I see
So,
it. Yeah.
we looked at now at NOS how it works with data and assets from certain industries, right? We looked at the training certificates for credentials. We looked at Church of Oak sample as supply chains of whiskey. We have scan, which of course in the next days and weeks, all of these will, in the same way as these training certificates that we looked at now, will transition onto the or be transformed onto this new version 6. But we have another industry that hasn't been represented so far on OriginTrail that is upcoming in the next year. And let me just do this. There we go. So we're introducing a new industry, very exciting actually project that we're going to be working on starting early next year, and it's European construction. And you can imagine that buildings and construction overall are very complicated beasts, right? A lot of things that goes into the building, a lot of things that goes into the maintenance of the building, huge amount of players that are involved into all of these. So it's really a multidisciplinary project. Focuses on turning building building data into knowledge assets, which means we'll also be introducing whole range of new standards and ontologies that are required for this industry specific thing to work. This is again where NOS comes in a lot. And one of the focuses is also to enable purchases of assets actually on a knowledge asset marketplace, so that if I'm building a new building and I need information as to what worked well with certain buildings, what didn't, and have that knowledge available, I'll be able to do this on a trusted knowledge marketplace. It's based on the new OriginTrail version 6. So all of this is then really kind of driving us toward having more greener, more sustainable and trusted construction sector, which is really exciting because the construction sector is really, it's an ecosystem, right? There's a lot of things I mentioned before that are going on, and having this 360-degree insight into buildings that is really based on trusted and verifiable knowledge from across all of the actors that are involved, right? So we looked at users, from tenants, property owners, the engineers, architects that designed it, to actually then buildings that when they were being built. So what went into the building, under what conditions, who was managing it, all of these types of things, to then of course the ongoing maintenance and kind of operation, and of course also the repairs and all of these types of things where new materials are introduced. It's really important for safety, essentially, right? And we've seen actually too many times in the past years what happens when this is not available. The latest one in Miami, Florida, right, where the building on the beach collapsed because it had sand and salt in the concrete and foundations, right? So this is a very exciting project. I think it's a very impactful project, and it's something that will that introduces huge potential, essentially, to the way we can apply the newly launched and just tested OriginTrail V6. Yeah, so I'll stop here. And before I go onward, if anyone wants to add anything around this particular project.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the consortium meets in Italy sometimes in January, and we'll be able to share more details about partnerships, about the steps within the projects, and when exactly the product will come to fruition.
We'll give you a pizza information.
Yeah, we got a jokester.
It had to be done. I'm very sorry. Very sorry. I guess I'm ready to be a dad.
Yeah. Wow, publicly. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a self-reveal. All right.
Now we're moving on to the next section.
True alpha.
Over to Branimir, I guess.
All right. Oh yeah, Brana, you want to take over this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Go.
Kind of give you a segue, because we've saw now kind of like what Jure was showcasing with the NOS, and what Brana did for the first asset, really how things are, like the rubber has hit the tarmac, we hit the ground running. This is now a live thing. It's a live network, and as activity on the network starts to increase, and as we also saw, like increase quite rapidly, we'll need very good metrics to look at what success looks like, or lack of success as well, right? So we need like a good measuring stick to keep track of all the activity and what's happening. So what Branimir goes through right now is really giving like a lighthouse metrics in terms of what we see to be the most critical stuff to be tracking, and how that really will also be positioned, or where it will be positioned in where you'll be able to find it.
Thanks, Tomasz. So yeah, I guess we can open the slide essentially, or click a couple of times just so the contents show.
I clicked twice now and nothing happened, so I'm just gonna wait for a second, or maybe I need to click. There we go.
It's always the person who does the demo that has like the glitches on their computer, right?
Yeah, it's the computer.
It's the computer. Yeah.
I think you need to click more.
Yes,
one more.
That's good. That's good. Or that is even better. So yes, the three key metrics. Like there's a lot of things we measure when it comes to the DKG performance metrics. How fast can something happen? How many things can execute on the graph level? And if you've been a node runner during the testnet stage of the V6 development, you've seen that through telemetry, perhaps. But those are very technical, very detailed metrics. And here we focus on three North Star, if you might say, metrics. The first one being the number of assets on the DKG. So obviously, the more assets there, the more connections can be formed, the more network effect on the asset level. And that is the key number one metric. The second metric is the actual total amount of trace token stake. We didn't mention trace too much over the course of this talk, but like I guess everybody knows, for those of you who might not, trace is the native token of the DKG. So in order to use the DKG, in order to create assets to compensate those system runners that we talked about, to basically make the system economically sensible, you essentially use trace token. So it's kind of like your gas or pay-as-you-go token used for the utility of the DKG. And not just obviously for this, but also for securing the network. So all of the nodes, like we said, they stake a certain amount of trace. This is 50,000 trace at this moment per node. So the total amount of trace stake in the network basically represent both the utilization, but also the amount of literally the stake in the network of how much vote it was put in terms of its security and growth. So the total amount of stake is basically the combination of the two. So all of the locked trace tokens in the network. What do I mean by when I say locked? So when a node stakes tokens, it basically locks these tokens into the smart contracts of the DKG, and then all of the publishing assets coming in, all of the tokens designated for that also get locked for the period of time of this asset lifetime. Like I said, there's the ability to designate a lifetime. So as opposed to, for example, on blockchains where something is persistently kept, the state is always there, therefore it's also more costly. The idea on the DKG is that you might not want to know, for example, for a cup of yogurt 20 years from now, if it's what was the actual yogurt that 20 years ago expired. So this is just a simple example. A long story short, the total amount of trace staked shows the amount of usage on the network, as well as the security, the size of the network when it comes to the nodes. I will talk more about the delegated staking, as I mentioned in the future, very specifically. But essentially, you are also will be able to stake tokens on nodes, so that whoever has trace that want to put to good use to utility, they will be able to do this through the network and contribute to this second metric. The third metric is something you probably have seen before, and we've seen it on one of the first slides, is the total graph size metric. We kept this metric because it represents the kind of a different angle. So the number of assets on the network really mean the number of entities, but the total graph size is really everything connected. So the number, the assets, the connections, the parameters, literally we count all of the edges and vertices in the graph, and we come up with a metric which is equivalent to, if you look at graph theory, graph cardinality, for example, it basically counts the number of things in the graph. And all that obviously contributes to the value of the graph. The more stuff inside, the more expected value you can get from it, and the more connections can form, and therefore network effects. So these will be the three key metrics we will be looking at from now on. And where we will be looking at those is at one of the first interfaces that is about to come out as one of the first applications that you can use with OriginTrail version 6. As a common user, you can basically use what we call Houston. Houston is the node command center. As a node runner, you would use Houston to set up your node, to add stake to it, to withdraw rewards once you earn them, to monitor your node, but also to monitor the network metrics. So as you can see in this screenshot, it will be possible to see all of the 3 metrics in Houston at any point in time. Yeah, so I guess this is the quick one on the metrics. Anybody want to add something, or do we want to keep moving?
No, I think we're good. We can kick off to the next one. Riga escaped, so he didn't.
Riga, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm back. I had to blow my nose. All right. I guess we're done with the DKG V6 metrics and showcasing the Houston, so we can move on to the roadmap update, which is another exciting topic, the last topic tonight, but definitely not the least exciting one. What's important to know about the roadmap update is that several important things that were supposed to happen later on in the future have already transpired, have already been part of the development efforts leading us towards the V6 launch. So there are a few exciting things within the roadmap, and one of them really has to deal with the fact that V6 already entails the most important elements of the V7. Now it's going to become a little bit more apparent how these features look like and how they function as we move a little further into the future as we ingest more knowledge assets. But the point here being is that after V6, the V8 will follow. Vladimir will cover a little bit more about that exciting jump towards the V8. And V8, again, it's an engine, so I guess it goes nicely with V6. Another good stuff which we have been kind of cooking is that we will double down on the multi-chain vision of OriginTrail. And multi-chain, whereas in the past, multi-chain direction was pretty much important for OriginTrail to scale, because Ethereum network in the past and the first network on which DKG was attached didn't have sufficient throughput for OriginTrail to be used at scale. So previously we have implemented more blockchains to the DKG, and although now DKG V6 is inaugurally launching on the parachain on Polkadot, we will continue on deploying the multi-chain vision in a way that each blockchain that gets integrated with the DKG also means extra adoption both ways. So the adoption coming to blockchain ecosystems that are in need of DKG and successfully bid for, they submit candidature to be the chains that get integrated on the DKG. And of course, the DKG, the OriginTrail community, gains adoption from the valuable assets that currently live on one or the other chain. So this section, the multi-chain section, is a part of the medical phase, because this is also one of the ways where we can deploy and garner network effects amongst other types of connecting to other centralized systems and also other decentralized storage systems in which you can also find very useful assets. One such example is IPFS or Filecoin. And this multi-chain vision, of course, that we double down is also contributing to the overall robustness of the DKG. Now, you know that we have been successful at winning the parachain auction on Polkadot, and also have successfully deployed parachain. And repeating again that DKG is inaugurally launching on parachain, and that was already part back in the past of the medical phase. So this is also one of the examples of the development that has taken place in the current phase, which is the Turing phase and now more network effects are expected from deploying the DKG in a multi-chain fashion within the Metcalfe phase. Currently, ongoing Turing phase also concludes sometimes in the beginning of the January. You can also go to the website and check the updated roadmap. You can also see there are some metrics that we feel are most fit for us to really understand, are we, by the time the metrics are hit, are we ready to jump from Turing to Metcalfe phase? So it's kind of both qualitative and quantitative measurements that we use in order to determine when does the Turing phase conclude and Metcalfe phase starts. But we can say right now that we're at the mature stage of the Turing phase. And yeah, I'm not gonna say too much anymore about the V8. I'm gonna leave it up to Branimir to dig into what he feels is the most exciting points within the new roadmap. Take it away, Branimir.
Yeah, so as Giga mentioned, it's interesting to observe the evolution. So that V6 really grew and took in what was originally intended for the version 7. And there's a lot of things that are coming to this version 6 that are still in the Turing and the Metcalfe phase, which again, like Giga said, are available to check out in detail on the website. Things such as support for additional cases where we use standards, additional, like we talked about, tokenomics updates, more interesting tooling, all of this within the Metcalfe phase and the Turing phase, obviously. What's kind of one of the most, personally for me, most exciting updates is, apart from all of these great things in Turing and Metcalfe, is the Berners-Lee phase, where we move towards basically, once we enabled all of this infrastructure in Turing phase, parachain and DKG V6, and we start growing the graph and we get into the domain of network effects on the 3 layers that Giga mentioned, blockchain network effects, the network effects between enterprise systems, as Yuri has showcased them well, and then the network effects with additional data systems, such as decentralized data systems. Then we really get to touch a really, really big graph. And that is perfect segue into what I'm the most excited about, is actually moving towards where knowledge graphs meet AI. And that is the one of the best substrates for this new industry, having very highly organized knowledge assets, verifiable information that is able to feed into the future of computer algorithms, which more and more, as you I'm sure all have seen, especially lately, are very much involving AI components, things like ChatGPT and all other systems like the ones generating amazing imagery. Well, they're just the start. And one of the biggest problems of this space is, well, not having enough data, not having enough well-organized data to feed AI models, not having verifiability of this information, and finally, obviously, trust into this. Those are just some of the problems, but the DKG is very capable of tackling them and solving them towards these higher values and goals of really having a more sustainable future. So for me, that's personally the most exciting one. And we foresee a lot of different integrations in the Berners-Lee phase, obviously to crystallize themselves through the community effort. So just as we've seen a lot of RFCs being developed and co-developed through this OriginTrail ecosystem, as you pointed out at the beginning, Giga, which is, I feel, really important to point out. We will continue doing so, and we're very happy to have everybody to join and together build this thing, because both during and Metcalfe phases, we're really enabling and growing what we built so far into the space where through enough R&D, we're able to bring this technology to even bigger fruition, to the actual biggest, hungriest beast that needs a lot of organized data, and that is literally the entire field of AI. So that's what excites me the most. How about you, Tomasz?
Yeah, I think it's becoming increasingly more apparent that that's a future we're gonna be in, and I feel the need for trusted knowledge assets only increases with that. Whether that's for our personal knowledge assets, whether that's for organizational knowledge assets. If we want to have an inclusive AI future, an inclusive internet, these components are likely to have a very big impact, because without them, it'll just be highly unpredictable, and a lot of appropriation of value of data, and yeah, just an all around not a good not a good thing. But with knowledge assets, you have this great component that allows you to create this perfect substrate, as Branimir described it, like a great foundation on top of which we can have a very exciting future and an exciting next generation of internet. So I'm excited for Turing Man because it has a lot of stuff coming in just around the corner. I'm excited about Metcalfe phase because we have a bunch of network effects hidden there with these different approaches, and Berners-Lee as well. So yeah, I think it's a good path forward.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, I think we're under 2-hour mark still, which is a great achievement.
Nice.
Not that we have demonstrated a couple of decentralized products and hinted towards a couple of others, and also explained something about the new roadmap. I think that's a great achievement. All right, shall we wrap it up here? Of course, there are several elements in this presentation which can be expanded on, like roadmap. We can have another chat, perhaps with community asking questions, and we can dwell deeper into every item in there, and then some. But yeah, I really enjoyed this presentation. It was, I must admit again, I was a little bit tense, especially because this is the first time we're launching something publicly. OriginTrail, one of the versions back in the days when we were launching the first version, I still remember back in 2019, it was, I think it was even more complex. I think we were a little less experienced, but now with having this experienced team, which by the way, kudos to each and every team member contributing to the launch of all these cool products. I know it must have been really, really tense for all of you, and excruciating sometimes to stay up a little longer than it was needed to make sure that everything is going according to plan, and that we have been able to surpass the plans that we set forth back in the days. So what we're seeing right now, it's a sum of the things which are much, much greater than what we would have anticipated previously. So it's really great to be here, to launch V6, and now going beyond the V6 is going to be really, really awesome to see all those knowledge assets being created by so many great ecosystem partners and user stakeholders, even community members. We still have few products to go live in the future. V8 being one of them. Very excited about that one. Yeah, I'm gonna pass the mic now to Branimir, Tomasz, Yuri. You guys have anything to add at the end?
Yeah, just jumping on the bandwagon. Thanks to everybody who made this happen. It's the team has been working really hard all over in all different fields, and and you can see that by the timing of the pull requests and things on GitHub. Everybody's been really excited about this, and it's going to be even more exciting now since we're live. So we're going to be seeing all kinds of interesting things happen. Also, thank you to the community for helping us with this. You guys have been running nodes for many months and contributing data towards the team so we could analyze. Each distributed system is extremely complex. It's hard to make software as is in a centralized fashion. If you want to make it in like having hundreds of computers speak to each other, trust me, all kinds of problems can go wrong there. And with having a lot of data, actually, we built the entire system that monitors the telemetry of the network, and you contributing this with your time and energy and following all of the releases, you helped tremendously towards the development of the project. So thanks to everybody running nodes, thanks to everybody contributing to code, thanks for everybody contributing to Project Bounty, and happy to see you guys continue doing so within the projects to come. So thanks everybody who was involved in this whole thing. It's your success as much as it's ours. So yeah, I'll conclude there, and I pass the baton to Yuri. He's been quiet for a while.
Yeah, I was recovering my throat from all the talking before, but at the risk of sounding repetitive, it's too much. At the risk of sounding repetitive, big thanks to the team. I think we all had a couple of long days and nights in the past months, and it's been worth it, right? So we can see the result. I'm excited to progress now with all of we kicked some things off, but we have so many exciting things now that I can't even stress how much V6 simplifies some of the things in terms of implementations and in terms of projects that we've been doing, and this will unlock a lot of very cool things that we haven't been able or weren't able to do before. And thanks to the team and the community for supporting all of that, because we have a very exciting the rest of the year, and then also next so 2023 I think will be a year to remember.